There was a couple of people that mentioned that Bricky's videos are a little outdated and sometimes like a little incorrect, but this is like kind of the general vibe of Warhammer, so I just wanted to watch it because this is like, I don't know, like everyone's classic introduction to Warhammer. I feel like I just like Bricky because I know him personally, so it's like a lot more fun to watch his videos for some reason. I don't know. Like whenever I meet people and then I watch their videos, it feels different. It feels better in a way. Also, Bricky's like funny, okay? He's actually really funny. Okay, let's watch the part 2 to Bricky's Warhammer video. We will be turning off TTS because I know a couple of people have expressed their expressing is a little distracting, and to be fair, it is also kind of distracting to me when we did it the last time, because sometimes it would be like a little off topic. So we're just gonna turn it off for this video, and then we'll turn it back on after the video ends so that we can have a more like less interruptive experience. Okay, let's go on.
In a two-part series on the Warhammer races. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, we do the Imperium of Man. You can check that out in the description, and I would highly recommend you watch that to get context for this episode. If you already have, go ahead and keep on watching. So after an entire episode of nothing but humans, we can now talk about chaos, which involves humans again, but a little bit less. We also got demons and shit.
Wow. I just felt someone grab my ass.
What?
Like hard, Nick.
So, as I've mentioned many times before, we've discussed the warp, the immaterium, the hellish landscape, the purgatory dimension realm between the material realm of our existence. Now, in the warp, it's terrifying, horrible. There are demons everywhere. Things are crazy. All your minds and thoughts and emotions get projected there. It is both formless and empty. It is vast and tiny. It obeys the laws of time and physics while simultaneously does absolutely nothing of the sort. It is a hodgepodge and a culmination of just unknowable, eldritch, horrifying shit. And there are 4 gods that permeate in chaos and the warp. These are the 4 major chaos gods.
Let me guess. Is it Nurgle, Slaneesh, that's it.
And if we wish to learn about chaos, we need to learn about each and every single one of these chaos gods. First up, we have Khorne, and he is the easiest. Khorne is your classic Satan. He is all about anger, murder, fighting, blood, guts, death. You ever heard the term blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne?
That's what it's from.
Khorne. The whole idea is that he is all about the fury and strength of battle. He doesn't.
This whole time we were fucking saying blood for the blood god, and it's fucking Khorne.
Care where blood comes from, so long as blood is flowing. He wants to fight and murder and carnage and slaughter and death, 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 death. That is Khorne. Very simple to understand. Next up, you have Tzeentch, and Tzeentch is the god of change. However, the god of
wasn't Tzeentch a Primarch, or like one of the Primarchs were like conspiring with Tzeentch? Am I getting that wrong? I feel like there was something where Tzeentch like had something with a Primarch, and then the Primarch got like corrupted or something. Magnus. See, I knew it. I fucking knew it.
Change, it's permeates in so many different other ways. He's the most eldritch of all the demon gods. He has this weird way to always be plucking at the strings of the universe. He's always conniving and scheming and doing his best to cause as much little bullshit as he can.
It looks cool, though.
Is unknowable. Everything that makes sense, he will and won't do. Every future and setting and every type of destiny or fate is always foretold and also changeable. It is set in stone while also completely random. He knows what everything is going to happen, and also that none of it's going to happen. You would ask Tzeentch a question. That question leads to 3 more questions, and those questions lead to the heat death of the universe, which asks 4 answers to those questions. And then he thinks to himself, what are questions even really? And are you—
That's literally like me looking up Warhammer videos. That's literally me, guys. That's anyone getting into Warhammer. Is Tzeentch behind everything? Is Tzeentch actually causing all of the questions that I'm asking?
Are you even asking the questions, or are you simply giving paths to answers and other horseshit? Tzeentch is just, I'm gonna with stuff. He is yes and he is no. He is understanding and he is complexity. He is unknowable. And that's what the God of Change is about. Very bizarre. And he likes birds a lot. I don't know why. Next up, we got Papa Nurgle. Papa Nurgle, he loves you for who you are. Probably not. He will murder you just the same. But Papa Nurgle is about rot, pestilence, death, and decay. He is the end of everything. Him and Tzeentch do not like each other very much because where Tzeentch represents change and adjustment, Nurgle represents stagnation and death. He is all about miasma and pestilence and large bloat and pus and organs and people just being sedentary, sloth. He is the idea that everything will rot and decay and die. I do kind of like that theme, though. Nothing is certain besides decay and
rotting
death.
And
all
disease.
Of us will end up the same way and broken down through just sheer never-ending decomposition. So the joke that Nurgle always loves you is generally because of that, because we all end up the same. We all rot.
Oh my God, what if he's a worshiper of Nurgle?
And wither. That's Nurgle, and he's got a general theme of course, pestilence and different kinds of diseases and sickness and things of that nature. That's generally Nurgle. He's pretty easy to understand as well, and he chunk. Finally, we have the youngest of the Chaos Gods, and that is...
She's so hot! Guys, if I were to worship a Chaos God, it would be her.
Slaneesh, also known as the Prince of Pleasure or the God of Unspeakable Excess. Slaneesh is generally referred to with sex, but it's not only sex, it's just that's a good avenue if you want to make stuff. Slaneesh is just the idea of the senses of the body being cranked to not just 11,
they're gender
but more
fluid?
like 17.
Wow.
So let's discuss Slaneesh a little bit more when we talk about the Eldar, because they done f***ed up, but or whatever is mainly about just the excess of emotions, and therefore sex is generally a large part of it. However, it's mostly pain and torture, lots of pain, torture, but sometimes sexually related or drug related. Lots of drugs.
So he looks like he's having a good time though. Look at that. He's like, like he has the eyes rolled back and everything.
Sure, but sometimes sexually related or drug related. Lots of drugs. Slaneesh gets off on everything. Extremes in happiness, extremes in sadness, extremes in pain and sadism and masochism. And of course that goes along with the sex part of it as well. It's generally referred to with sex because of the color scheme, very purple, lots of exposed genitalia. A lot of their models have like exposed nipples and stuff. And that is generally the theme you go for from a physical side, but it really embodies everything, mainly pain and also the excessive amounts of emotion. So when it comes down to it, you'll find a lot of them have things like spikes or whips or any kind of BDSM style gear because it is unspeakable excess. The Prince of Pleasure. Everything in excess to the point where it is just sheer frightening.
What do you need all those nips
Slaneesh in a nutshell. A little bit bizarre and a little hard to describe sometimes, but as we talk more about the Dark Eldar later in this video, you'll understand it far, far better and far more than you'd want to.
Does the Dark Eldar worship Slaneesh?
Thinking, why would anyone ever want to join Chaos? They all look horrifying, screwed up, and just frightening things, right? The thing is that, of course, one, your mind is put into the warp and the immaterium, so you can be easily swayed by Chaos demons when you get into your head, especially if you're a psyker. Sometimes regiments of the less mentally strong people, whether they be civilians or, say, low-level guardsmen or conscripts, can be easily swayed by this and become Chaos cultists and stuff, and they serve their dark gods and whatever god they personally prefer. However, and this might seem strange, Chaos in their own right isn't necessarily evil. See, the warp is every manifestation of emotion and being, every soul, everything of existence. This includes all the good things. All the different Chaos gods have another side to their coin. Khorne might be death, murder, slaughter, slaughter, but he's also got this weird sense of survival of the fittest, trial by combat, and honor. Khorne will never lie to you. Khorne will never stab you in the back. Khorne isn't about conniving and scheming. Khorne is about straight up mano-y-mano, you versus me, get in the ring, we're gonna murder each other hard.
Wait, he sounds like a good guy, actually. I think I would get along with Khorne.
Right now. It may not be a good thing at the end of the day, but it is that other side of the coin. Him and Tzeentch generally don't get along because Tzeentch is that conniving schemer,
he's a lying bitch.
but he's also about the idea of hope. Where there is change for your predicament. There is change for your problem. The hope of the galaxy, the ability to bend the world to your will, the idea that your fate is not set in stone, but in reality that you control your own destiny and can control it whenever you want, the changer of ways. That is Tzeentch. And of course,
he's
Tzeentch
like
and
a
Nurgle
illithid.
hate each other because while Nurgle does represent stagnation, death, and decay, he also represents finality. An ending. The fact that you can be mentally at peace knowing that you will end and how you will end. Fear of the unknown, fear of change.
I feel like Papa Nurgle's just cooking like a really good fucking, I don't know, like a good jumbo. Like, look at him cooking in the crock pot thingy. He's making a good soup for all of his children.
Change is not present with Nurgle. With Nurgle, everything will rot and die, and that provides that finality, that ability that this is over.
Gumbo.
We are all the same, and we will all end the same. We know the meaning of life. The meaning of life is to live and die and rot. And with that, it brings peace of mind. Slaneesh is a lot more simple. While they are the excess of emotion, they are also the representation of emotion. Slaneesh embodies happiness. Slaneesh embodies excitement and joy and pleasure.
That sounds
Not
good
only
to
in the
me,
sense
honestly.
of the physical, bam style of pleasure, but also everything else like food and drink and air on your cheek and sunlight, the feeling, emotion and feeling. All of that is also represented with Slaneesh. So you have to ask, why are they always represented
Doesn't
as
sound
super
bad at
evil
all.
skulls and spikes on everything and want to murder everybody? I don't really got an answer for you on that one. My assumption is that because mentally humans may think worse thoughts, even if we don't act on them, and therefore they're projected in the warp more. That one's a little bit weird. I don't know. This is me spitballing right now, but I don't know. You need a super bad guy. You already got the Imperium of Man. You need somebody to be a little bit worse than them. So you got demons. Honestly, who cares? I just want to buy like a bird magician. Look at him.
That's Skyrath
cool.
Mage from
So
Dota.
combining all this together on the tabletop, Chaos Demons are generally very melee based. They run in, go really hard. You have lots of summoning and conjuring, tons of spells. Generally a little bit frail, but they have special saves to make them a little bit stronger. You've got giant demons and smaller demons. You got hordes of little boys and tons of big guys. Demons are as they seem. Demons. Nurgle is slow. Khorne is super scary in melee. You've got Tzeentch, who are far more into psychers
So Khorne is the like epitome of like warriors and barbarians and melee class in like the Holy Trinity. Tzeentch is like the mage and all the psychers and like supernatural. Nurgle is like the fucking necromancers and like witch doctors, and then Slaneesh is like the what would you say Slaneesh would be? Nurgle's a tank. The rogue. I would say Slaneesh is like a rogue or something agile, something like a archer. Strippers, yeah, the stripper class. Got it. Melee glass cannon.
spell casting, and then Slaneesh,
Dancer.
who is all melee,
Like a sword
really,
dancer.
really, really fast, but squishy, but in lots of hordes of tons of melee and pain damage, of course. So overall, the demons are a huge part of 40k and a massive threat to almost every single faction, with the exception of a couple. However, the big part about demons is also transferred into the other 9 Primarchs we didn't talk about, which are the Chaos Space Marines.
Oh.
So Horus and all of his boys,
Fuck
all
Horus.
of them in the Primarchs,
All my homies
they
hate
have
Horus.
all also become Chaos Boys, and they all have their own special Chaos Legions, specializing in so many different things, just like the Adeptus Astartes, the Angels of Death, the regular Space Marines. Chaos Space Marines aren't a whole lot different than the regular Space Marines. They have the same armor, generally the same training and toughness. They just specialize in different kinds of things. And also a lot of the Primarchs have ascended into greater demons? They're demon Primarchs at this point. Gigantic, horrifying man-demon hybrids that are pretty awesome, if I'm going to be honest. They look really, really cool.
Heretic.
But them and their associated legions that they are a part of are all kind of going out there and causing a large ruckus for everyone else. Considering the raw strength and firepower of a legion of Space Marines, imagine that entire legion just converting to chaos and immediately fighting you. It's generally pretty horrifying. There's a lot of...
Wait, what? So like, if you're in battle, like people can just like spontaneously turn into a chaos to the Chaos Marine? Is that what you said? Hold on.
Strength and firepower of a legion of Space Marines. Imagine that entire legion just converting to chaos and immediately fighting you. It's generally pretty horrifying. There's a lot of them, so I gotta write them down. But you've got the Emperor's Children with Primarch Fulgrim, loyal to Slaneesh. These people, they are some messed up people. They're just sensory overload, tons of drugs, tons of torture. And I think Fulgrim is a demon Primarch right now. And oh God, I am terrified to see what that man looks like, at least on the tabletop, because Emperor's Children are not good people. You've got the Iron Warriors, which are kind of like opposite of the Imperial Fists with Primarch
unplug the Emperor?
They're Chaos Undivided. They just kind of serve chaos in a general aspect instead of choosing one of the four. But the Iron Warriors are big on the siege and fortification, and they're
like, he needs 1,000 souls to live every single day. Like, just don't give him any souls. Then he can't influence you anymore.
Basically entirely against the Imperial Fists and a major rival. Perturabo, I believe, is also still alive, and I'm also very interested to see what he looks like, because Demon Primarchs are badass. You've got the Night Lords with Primarch Conrad Kurz. Conrad Kurz is dead, which is good, because he's a sick fuck. But the Night Lords are generally about terrorizing people, and terrorism.
They look like
generally
Inquisitors.
About fear, and rightly so. You've got the World Eaters with Primarch Angron, still alive, also excited to see. Angron, if you think you've known an angry person, Angron is the angriest son of a bitch you will ever know. Angron removed parts of his brain that didn't make him angry, so he could be angrier. Angron. Fucker's mad. You've got the Death Guard with Primarch Mortarion.
That
they
looks
actually have
so
their own
cool.
special codex and their own major army on the tabletop. Mortarion himself is actually one of the models. And look at him. Look at him. It's so cool looking. Of course, Nurgle based, obviously. So very slow but very tanky. You've got the Word Bearers with Primarch Lorgar. Lorgar is, I believe, still alive. I don't know what's up with him at the current moment, but the Word Bearers are generally the people who caused all the major problems in the beginning.
What?
At least I blame them for it. They're little assholes. You got the Black Legion with Primarch Horus. Get fucked, nerd. You've got the Alpha Legion with Primarch Alfarius Omegon. Chaos, I think. And then finally, you've got the Thousand Sons with Primarch Magnus the Nerd. The Thousand Sons also have their own book, just like the Death Guard. Magnus is also a tabletop model.
Because wasn't it like the Thousand Sons? Like, wasn't their Primarch Magnus who... Was it Magnus that like warned the Emperor of Horus? But then like because he warned the Emperor through like a psyker way, then the Emperor ordered like the Space Wolves or some kind of other faction to like take out the Thousand Sons. Was that what happened? And then like Magnus got influenced by like Tzeentch or whatever, and then like they actually escaped, and then they like went to the warp, and like Magnus wanted to find a way to like fix things. Was that am I like getting that mixed up with another group of or faction? Yes and no. He warned him, but doing so fucked up the Wedway for the Emperor, thus allowing Demon on Terra. Oh, shit. Okay. Holy shit. Look at the nipple horns. Wow.
Oh, he looks super cool.
Like, what even is the point of the nipple horns? Like, does he thrust his chest into his enemy and then it, like, stabs them?
as you can tell, and they're all super heavily Psyker and kind of Egyptian themed. They look pretty neat.
Oh,
but overall,
Tricky would love
with
that.
all of these Chaos Space Marine factions, you can play as a lot of different ones, but the main ones that you can really work at are standard Space Marines, Chaos Space Marines, as well as the Death Guard and Thousand Suns, as they are the most fleshed out, especially on the tabletop at least. See this right here? This is a really good way to describe the Chaos Space Marines. What the thick-headed fools with their broken corpse of an emperor fail to understand is that not only can they never defeat us, but they cannot hide or flee or shield themselves from the triumph of chaos. They are finite and we are unbound, undivided. They must not err, or they shall fall to heresy. All who fall join our cause. Every imperial fool who dares to open his eyes is a willing recruit. They strive merely to hold back our fury and might, and it consumes them. Thus, you can see chaos is inevitable. We lurk not only beyond their grasp and at their gates, we lurk within the darkness of their souls, on the tip of their tongues, in their tortured dreams. We are them, but freed from the shackles of ignorance. We are them, grown strong, evolved. We are them, but so much more. As hardcore as that quote is, the saddest part is they're mostly right. Chaos is basically unkillable. You could probably get rid of Space Marines a decent amount, the Chaos Space Marines that is, but every soul that dies goes to the warp. Every Chaos soul will end up back in the warp. And depending on how hard you killed them, they will come back at some point.
So are you saying that if I were like a Space Marine per se, and I died, my soul will go back to the warp where like chaos is like running rampant? Where does my soul go? He said all souls goes back to the warp, and like warp is like, isn't warp like the source of chaos or something? Your soul gets immediately eaten by demons. It goes in spectator mode. Somewhat, the realm of chaos is just a territory in the warp. Yeah, there's so many mixed answers. All souls go to the warp unless devoured by a stronger one. There's a theory that the Emperor is becoming a fifth chaos god. What? So if it really is a if he really is becoming a chaos god, what would he be? Because we have like all of the chaos gods are like kind of like emotions, right? Or like based off like human nature, I guess. Like what would the Emperor would be? God of order? Huh. Less chaos god, he would be a god. Interesting. God of hemorrhoids. He would have a lot of hemorrhoids technically, because he's been sitting on that throne for like how long? So like there's no way he does not have hemorrhoids. Like the Emperor probably has hemorrhoids.
Demon you banish will return at some point. Chaos is unstoppable. The warp is unending. And while maybe there is at some point some way to stop them somehow, the resources to do so, the requirements to do so, are so far beyond the reaches of man and the other races at the current moment that really it's just an unstoppable force that just keeps on coming and is just barely being slowed. Chaos is by far the biggest threat. They are without number, their legions are everywhere, and yeah, they're pretty scary. So I promise we're done with humans now. Let's talk about some Xenos.
Is there lore on the Emperor in his prime before he became like stuck to his throne and like kind of dead and decaying? Is there lore before that when he was in his prime? A little. Is there like a book that I can read? What book would you guys recommend for me to start reading? Because I'm looking for a book to like sit down and just like read on my free time. There are many books. Horus Heresy series. Pepe laugh. Horus. Okay, I'm here. I'm seeing a lot of Horus Heresy. I will take a look. Take a look. 67 novels is crazy. I don't think I would be able to sit through 67 novels. Goodbye. Goodbye. Oh shit, we're gonna learn about the Eldar. This is the space elves. The space elves. I'm ready.
So let's talk about the Eldar, or also known as the Eldari, which are a super hyper specialized and very technologically advanced race of, well, elf people.
They look like they're all psychers
responsible
too.
for the creation of Slaneesh, the newest demon god.
Bitch, they created Slaneesh. I thought the chaos gods were like just beings that were just all there as like from the start of the beginning. I didn't know they were created, let alone from one of them from the space elves. Hello? That's crazy. Yo, Cinder, what the heck? Hi, Cinder, how are you? I think I saw you playing the HoloLive like roguelite type game. I forgot what it's called, but it looks really fun. I hope you had a good time. I hope you had a good stream. How are you? Hi, Pyro Puffs. Welcome, PP Gang. Mwah. Oh, Hollow Cure. I need to try. I've never tried it before, but it looks really awesome. I noticed Cinder really likes those type of games because I remember she was playing one that was like super. It was very Gunner-y though. Like it was a bunch of sexy women, and like the type of buffs that you get determine how your character looks, and you can have like fat ass or like a big tits, or like you can have small tits. What is it? Wedding Witch? Yeah, that one was. I would play that one honestly. It looked really fun. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed your time with Cinder. Welcome to the stream. I'm Yuzu, Monster VTuber. We are currently catching up with the every single Warhammer 40k faction explained part 2 from Bricky. And then once we're done with that, we're going to jump into Space Marines. And hopefully we can finish today. I'm not sure how far we are into the game. But yeah, I hope we get pretty far. But yeah. We're doing a little lore deep dive. Thankfully, he's really good and he's really funny, so it makes it a lot more awesome to watch. So yeah, enjoy your time here. Thank you for rating, and please get some water. Please get some food. I love you, Cinder, and I hope you have a good rest of your night. I don't know if you're going to bed right now, but I know it's pretty late. So yeah, thank you.
How'd they do that? Debauchery on a world-ending scale. See, back in the day, it was just Khorne, Tzeentch, and Nurgle. And the Eldar are very, very ancient, millions of years. These Eldar, however, have a bit of a sensory problem. You know, every kind of pain or feeling that you have is a little bit amplified compared to the normal. However, with Eldar, as their race advanced so excessively, and they became so self-reliant, and everything became so easy, there was no requirement for food production anymore. There was no shortages. Everything was basically done. Everyone was so comfortable. And that comfort breeded this weird sedation. And that sedation breeded the requirement for more and more debauchery.
What does debauchery mean again? Is that when you have sex with not your married partner? That's adultery? Oh. What's debauchery then? It's just degen shit? Oh, so they're freaky. They're freaky. They're kink maxing. Oh, wow. Interesting. Oh, so they were tired of missionary. They're like, we're going to try some freaky shit. We're going to do like sounding or something. And then they created Slaneesh out of it. Okay, interesting. Naruhodo.
Debauchery! Debauchery! When everything you have can be so easily acquired, you will end up down this road of pure debauchery. all of the senses the Eldar had that were so powerful, things like feeling, happiness, sadness, and just evil and good, all needed to be satisfied and satiated. And the desire to satiate these senses grew more and more with worse and worse debauchery. It started off with things like sex and drugs becoming so much more rampant because of these.
And they just created like a good life for themselves, and they were like, you know what, we need more, so let's fucking do drugs and have sex and all these like freaky deaky things. And then they created a god that enslaved their people. Holy moly.
First things you generally turn to when requirements for living are so easily accessible. It would get to the point that made Sander Cohen in BioShock look sane.
What the hell, man?
This is the kind of debauchery it led to. It was constantly satisfying and satiating these sexual and sadistic or masochistic fantasies that only elevated and elevated.
Y'all already know that Eldar had some crazy orgies.
And this was species-wide. People started going down darker, more depraved, and more violent paths as time went on. However, some people didn't entirely take to that. Some of the Eldar were looking at this depraved species that they had become and said, no thanks for me, dog, I'm good. And they bailed. These are the Craft World Eldar. They left on these giant continent-sized starships called Craft Worlds. They believed in learning the old ways of the Eldar and pushing away from this depravity and debauchery and going back to their main roots. And so they would segment themselves on these giant craft worlds far in the outer reaches of space.
They said no
They even
gooning
had
allowed.
this thing called the Webway. Remember what we mentioned about warp travel with the Imperium? Well, the Eldar had something way safer called a Webway. And the Eldar Webway is actually like a pocket dimension.
Didn't someone fuck up their webway though? Like, wasn't there a whole like situation where someone fucked up the webway and then like now it's gone and they can't use it anymore? Oh, it was okay, Magnus.
Kind of thing. And in that pocket dimension, there were also more horrible, depraved groups and clans that would spend their time in there. And if you imagine the debauchery was bad already, these were debauchery X10. So all of this continued, and it continued, and it bloated until Slaneesh just burst forth. All that emotion, all that mental, well,
titties out, pussy facing the world, everything.
All of this in such a condensed space. Don't forget, this is all being shot, all their souls as well, into the warp. All this depravity right into the warp. So what happened? Boom. Slaneesh was birthed and killed off 90% of the entire Eldar population.
What?
Untold trillions had their souls ripped from their bodies and their actual fleshy bodies devoured by Slaneesh demons.
You're telling me the whole entire race of the Eldar was fucking so much that Slaneesh just appeared out of nothing and then consumed 90% of the population? This is what happens when you goon too much, guys. You better stop fapping at 3 a.m. because Slaneesh is watching.
The entirety of the Eldar race was eaten alive and their souls consumed to the Prince of Pleasure. All of them got fucked up. It was so bad that it literally ripped a warp hole into the fabric of the materium called the Eye of Terror. That's literally this like quasi-horrifying gateway portal from the materium and the immaterium right next to Cadia.
No!
And it is horrifying. So this
right next to
Slaneesh, also known
Cadia.
as She Who Thirsts by the Eldar, slaughtered the entire population except for a couple. Those in the craft worlds were actually not affected by this as they were so far in the reaches of the galaxy.
Thank God they pieced out.
Crack, that birth of Slaneesh only affected the ones in the center. So these craft world Eldar were able to escape, but Slaneesh got their sights on them. Every time an Eldar will die, their soul doesn't just pass into the warp naturally. It goes straight to Slaneesh, craft world or not.
Shoot.
What about those people in the Webway?
You're kidding. So if you're a fucking craft world Eldar and you die, your soul goes straight to her. That's fucked up. You pieced out and you're still affected by the shitty actions of your other. That is crazy.
Well, imagine that giant birth happening, but they were only able to just barely get a grasp onto you. Slaneesh was just barely able to hold on. These people are the Dark Eldar, or also known as the Drukhari. The Eldar population right now is so massively small. It is minuscule compared to any of the other most of the other populations in the universe. The Eldar are consistently having issues trying to get their population up because as their souls are constantly being hungered by from Slaneesh, they realize their entire species is doomed.
Yeah, I mean,
they understand
what do you do against that?
Since the time of the
How
fall,
the hell do you
our race has been haunted by what we, in our reckless pursuit of hedonistic indulgence, gave birth to. Though our dreams once overturned worlds and quenched suns, we are now but fitful shadows clinging to the edge of existence. All the stars in the sky cannot blot out the hateful glare of the red moon's eye. The birthing place of the great enemy pulses with all the malice of a demon that is dreaming, casting its shadow over all we have ever done and all we ever shall. Every twisted strand of fate and casting of the runes leads me to this time, to this place, and it is clear that the final battle awaits me at the ancient Crone worlds, a conflict the likes of which has not been seen since the Monkai warred amongst themselves and their corpse of a seer fell to his traitorous son. Is coming, and all my steps lead towards it, no matter that I walk other paths. I see the stars stained red with the blood of the Monkai, and though their wars do not concern me, I would gladly let them destroy one another. I know that to avoid this fight is to condemn my race to inevitable doom, and though all I see is darkness, I know that I will not flinch from my destiny. And now let's talk about cute plastic models.
Bro,
So not only they created Slaneesh, the fourth chaos god, they now know that their future and afterlife is just doomed because when they die, she will just consume their soul. That is crazy. And even if you had no part in the goonerism that took place originally that created her, you're still doomed. So what do you do against that? Maybe, you know what? I have an idea. Maybe you goon more, create another god, and then have those two gods fight each other until they explode. Wait, craft worlders have soul stones, so they aren't instant sucked. Oh, so they can save themselves. Yeah, that's literally the current lore. Wait, what? They're gooning they're gooning more so that they can make another god so that the two gods fight each other? Is that really what's happening? No? Oh. Some of them are trying to birth more gods. They're making a death god. That just sounds even more horrible than Slaneesh. I don't know about me. I don't know about you guys. But the death god over the sex god sounds worse.
I'm straight up not having a good time.
The first playable race we have for the Eldar are the Craft World Eldar and living in those Craft World starships I mentioned earlier. And each of them have their own kind of craft world, almost like a Space Marine Legion. Each craft world is in itself its own special kind of group. And the Eldar themselves are very fast and rely a lot on trickery. They are squishy.
This is probably the only time that I don't ever want to be an elf. In Warhammer lore, I would never want to be an elf.
Weak, but they're very in tune as psychers. Tons of psychers across the entire Eldar population, and their weaponry and abilities are fast and extremely hard hitting, but of course rather fragile. Understanding an Eldar's brain is an exercise in futility. They are all over the place in confusion and trickery on a whole galactic scale. They fight weird, they think weirder, and Eldar in their own right really rely on this to keep their species alive. They need to think about deception and the strangeness of what they do if they truly want to not be immediately murdered and slaughtered wholesale thanks to their entirely small population. However, I must say that it seems like their population is getting slightly better. These craft worlds hold millions upon millions of people. And as they continually, reproduce and have their craft worlds expand, losing a few people in battle, while hurts a lot, they aren't really losing what's extremely precious to them. It's not like every single death means the death of their species. It seems like they're kind of on the upturn a little bit. They're still a doomed race, being sucked into Slaneesh every time someone dies.
Only up from here.
But they are definitely doing a little bit better than they were before. Eldar are fast, cunning, and what they don't make up for in tankiness, they make up for in extremely advanced weaponry. They also call humans Monkai, which is like
they also don't they all have like an affinity for the warp? Like don't they all have like a way to use the warp? They're all psychers. Oh, okay. That I feel like because they're all psychers, that just makes them like way stronger than a lot of other races.
I mentioned earlier, that is a derogatory slur for humans in the Warhammer world. Why is it called Monkai? Well, it's because you can't in your game call people monkeys.
Oh.
On the tabletop, exactly what I said. Not very tanky, generally pretty squishy, hit like trucks and move at Mach 5. Fast, hit hard, die fast.
Damn.
Exactly how it sounds. They've been good for a very long time too. We bring only death and leave only carrion. It is a message even a human can understand. Eldar. So, Drukhari.
Oh, wow.
Let's talk about the Dark Eldar.
Holy schmoly, man.
Fucked up, it's fucked up. That's fucked up.
So those people I mentioned in the webway, in the super deranged cults and the depraved people of the Eldar, in the webway, they didn't quite get a hold onto them. Slaneesh has them, but it has them on by the pinky finger. And they're slowly being consumed by Slaneesh, but they found out they can stave her off by doing Slaneesh things. The Dark Eldar are by far the worst, most horrifying, disgusting, depraved, and brutal race in all of Warhammer 40k. These are entirely a group of people whose full purpose to save their species from extinction, to go into planets, raid them, and take as many slaves as they possibly can to torture them for 1, 5, 10, 20, a million years, because that torture will keep them from dying. They look very BDSM style too. They definitely have a lot more spiky bits, and they have a lot more of that kind of leathery black look to them. But example, let's say you are an upstanding Imperial citizen, living life on a regular planet. You get invaded by the Necrons. The Necrons will shoot you with a deatomizer, and you will be destroyed in a millisecond.
Damn, the Necrons have weapons that will literally kill you on an atomical level. These are the same people that imprisoned their gods and killed their own gods, right?
And that's it. Not the worst way to go. You are invaded by Chaos Marines or something. You take a bolter shot to the head or a chain sword across your stomach and you get cut in half. Painful, but not the worst. The Orks arrive. They beat you to death. Hurts, but, whatever. Tyranids, they eat you alive.
Oh, fuck that. Fuck that. I feel like a Tyranid would, implant eggs inside of you, too. I would not want to die to a Tyranid.
Eldar. The Dark Eldar. This is going to get a little graphic. I apologize.
I don't think we...
You pray you die. You don't. You are instead taken as a human slave. Your life will be endless work and agony, 24/7. They will make sure you can't not die, as your pain satisfies them. They will hook you up to all manner of torture devices. They will inject pain-based like stimuli drugs directly into your nervous system.
What the
They will
heck?
slowly run razor blades across your skin. They will fillet
Oh my
you
God.
and pull out your teeth and your fingernails one by one. They will remove your appendages and your skin and wait for it to grow back so they can do it again. They will murder and torture and use the R word, it rhymes with grape, your entire
Oh my
family in front of
God.
you and do the exact same thing to them. You yourself will also be rhymes with grape anywhere and everywhere possible. And this will occur for 20 years until you are no longer satisfying to them. And then you will be contorted, crushed, and twisted into some form of trophy, a fleshy trophy, or a ring, or a couch,
What?
or a TV stand, or perhaps a wonderful hat, while you are, of course, still alive and breathing. And
So they can turn you into a finger ring, and you would still be alive. What the fuck?
and you will become a moaning, fleshy
Imagine they turn you into a cock ring, and you're still alive on someone else's cock. I mean, they would. They absolutely would.
trophy for eternity. And that is what happens when you are taken by the Dark Eldar. They are the most depraved,
Dude,
most
if I had found out the Eldar was raiding my planet that I would do the honors myself, and I would not want to be taken in by an Eldar.
horrifying race in all of 40K. They look the part, and they do it so they all don't die. They are literally forced to do this, because if they don't, Slaneesh's grip will get harder, and they will have their souls pulled away. So long as they keep doing this, Slaneesh is like, "You're doing good, man. You're doing solid. You keep that shit up, you elf."
Oh, so they're doing it because Slaneesh is pleased by it, so that she doesn't consume them.
Here, bastards. That's the Dark Eldar. That's the Drukhari. They are horrible. On the tabletop, they're actually kind of like Eldar, but more extreme. They are even squishier than the Eldar,
Oh,
but they
wow.
hit generally even harder.
Oh,
Fast
shit.
attacks, skirmishers, really
Hella
quick,
glass cannon.
speedy, like get around them, do a lot of damage, get away kind of stuff. That's most of the Dark Eldar. Look up the definition of grim dark in a dictionary. You'll find a picture of the Dark Eldar and Sev from Republic Commando. A quote from Mr. Vecht.
Grimdark.
"We are the lords of despair, masters of terror. Dread and agony are our meat and wine, and they are plentiful indeed." Dark Eldar. Let's talk about the Harlequins.
Harlequins.
What's the
I
matter,
hate clowns.
Eddie? Don't you want to have some fun?
The Harlequins
I do
are a
not like
bizarre
clowns.
race of Eldar. They're demonic clown performers. They're like a weird mix of Sander Cohen from BioShock and Jin from League of Legends, but in a more
Jin.
clown theme. They're artists of death and perfecters of their craft. They do not belong to Craft Worlds or any of the weird Drukhari people. They
mean, they
guard
look
something
cool,
called
I
the
guess.
Black Library,
They don't
which
really
is this
look like
giant
clowns.
tome of never-ending knowledge deep in the heart of the Eldar webway, and also guarded by their god named Kegorok, I believe is how you pronounce his name. He is the
Kegorok.
laughing god, but it's the Eldar's laughing god, and these are the Harlequins, the Harlequin clowns. These are Eldar clowns, okay? So imagine the things that an Eldar, these depraved individuals, would find funny, and this is the god of that. It's a horror
What-
clown. These are
what do they
gods of
find funny?
horror for us normal people. For them, they're like, oh, it's so funny. They're all dying horribly. Honk, honk. They're very bizarre and difficult to
Oh.
describe. They've escaped the ruinous powers of Slaneesh somehow, but their main thing is guarding that Black Library. And the Harlequins just... They're demon clown performers. They're barely any models on the tabletop. They're good in melee.
Are they just
They're
not
demon
that popular?
clowns. I'm not sure. I got a quote. It is too easy for an Eldar to embrace the obscene virtues of chaos, for Slaneesh is nothing more than a manifestation of the Eldar mind in its most wild and unconstrained form.
Rare and
Human
mysterious.
morality is meaningless to the Eldar, and to the dark side of the Eldar mind, all life is to be expended at a whim. Cruelty and generosity are but the impulse of a moment. Beauty and sensuality are virtues that can be expressed in bloodshed just as easily as in song. To an unfettered Eldar mind, there is neither sanity nor madness, but merely a wave of perfect existence fulfilled by its own savage momentum. They're very strange. Harlequins, Drukhari...
I feel like when I see the official art of Warhammer like factions and like people, like it looks fucked up, but like when I see the tabletop like figurines for it, it's even more fucked up in the figurine form in a way that like it looks creepy.
Eldar, they are an anomaly that make humans seem completely easy to understand in comparison. They range from rekindling their civilization to horrifying murder and also clowns. They're all over the place, but honestly, they represent quite
look
well
like blood
and are
elves
rather interesting,
from
especially
World
with
of
the
Warcraft.
whole Slaneesh murdering everyone bit. So, yeah, Eldar. Now, bugs.
Ma, they following me, Ma.
Tyranids,
They following
let's
me.
go!
The bugs.
The Tyranids.
I mean, for the
Now,
Emperor.
You want to talk something a lot more fun, a little more simple than all this crazy Eldar shenanigans? Let's talk the Tyranids. They're bugs. Do they look like Zerg? Hell yeah, they look like Zerg. You want to know why they look like Zerg? Because they were actually supposed to be what Zerg were.
I literally fucking made that connection, guys. I literally said that one time when we were streaming Warhammer, that the Tyranids remind me of the Zergs from the StarCraft.
StarCraft was supposed to be a 40k game in the beginning, hence why they look so much like Eldar, Zerg, and the Imperium of Man. Like, kind of space marine-y. Those Marines, huh?
That
was
is
a little bit space
crazy.
marine-y to
That
me.
is so crazy.
Maybe. I don't know. You really fucked up on that one, Games Workshop, didn't ya? Tyranids are a giant infestation of unfathomable proportions. These are giant, extremely bio-advanced
I hate the way it looks.
hive mind organisms that are basically all about absorbing as much biomass as they possibly can to evolve and mutate to be extremely potent and powerful and kill and eat anything in their path. They are probably the least evil faction in all of 40k.
Is that true though, chat? Is that true?
Because all they want to do is eat shit. They want to nom nom the entire galaxy. They hangry and
I guess they don't really have like any evil intentions. It's just they're just doing things that is like an instinctual thing for their race to like live. They just eat things.
Food. Also, this Tyranid hive mind has a presence in the warp. In fact, Tyranids in their own right have a massive presence in the warp. They have a thing called the shadow in the warp specifically.
Oh, that's a zoanthrope or something.
Massive presence in the warp. They have a thing called the shadow in the warp specifically, where when they are coming in to invade a planet, they have this weird ability to kind of cut off the warp on all the psychers on that planet. And how do you get help across the stars? Well, you need the warp, because you need that for interstellar travel. So with people unable to call for help from the Tyranids, these are just easy pickings. And an entire giant Tyranid hive fleet comes out of orbit and just will massacre, absorbing all that biomass and turning them and all of their other Tyranids into even more advanced monsters. They come in so many varieties too, all based on what is important. Tiny little ripper swarms for scouting and having little dudes eat people up, to the Hormigons, Termagants, and Gene Stealers, all the way to the Hive Guard and the Exocrines and the Swarm Lord, to Hive Tyrants and their giant battle fleets, and even something as crazy as the Hierophant Bio Titan. The Tyranids come in all forms and sizes.
That shit looks amazing though. What the heck? That reminds me of like a kaiju from like Godzilla type beat. Like Godzilla type lore.
Depending on what they require, they are extremely good at anti-biological weaponry. There is no way you can plague them or blight them. They have extremely strong armor, carapaces and such. Tyranids are nigh perfect organisms and are pretty spooky when it comes down to how they handle all of their genetic material.
So are they not really sentient?
Them, they'll keep evolving. They keep on creating new horrifying organisms.
They don't have any free
spread
will
across the galaxy. And you know what the most terrifying part of the Tyranids is? We might be surrounded. There have been like around 6 or 7 Tyranid hive fleets. Behemoth, Kronos, all these different kinds of hive fleets. And they've all arrived in the galaxy from different points. Different sections of the Milky Way galaxy have had different Tyranids come through. And that is horrifying. Because as far as we know...
That is crazy. So we don't even know that... how much of them there are. It's just we know that there's a lot and they might be surrounding the whole galaxy. That is crazy. Just like not knowing they could just fucking all in. They could just all in and then just take over the whole galaxy.
We could just be surrounded on all sides by Tyranids. The only reason you may not hear a whole lot about Tyranids is because it's a little bit hard to have a bunch of story off of one hive mind genocidal monsters. All these giant bugs swarming in, killing and eating everybody and evolving. Oh, I mean, as cool as there are, there's some cool characters, the Swarm Lord, Old One Eye. You can't really have a whole bunch of major character-based stories around them. As awesome as they are, they're simple. They want to...
So there's not really a lot of like cool characters from like the Tyranid side of things. It's just they're just fucking bugs. I guess that makes sense though. I would like to see like a cool character from the Tyranid side, like as a hive lord leader that like influences the hive. I think that would be cool. Old One Eye. They have one named One Eye. Oh, shit.
Eat you. They want to eat you and absorb your biomass. They are simple bugs. If you want something a little more complex, talk gene stealer cults.
I can have all the pot I want. I get
Gene
around
stealer.
faster than walking, and wherever I need a seat, I can just sit on my balls.
Gene stealer cults are a special brand of Tyranid that can slowly infect themselves into different kinds of society. And by infecting them, they can rise up to where they all pray and believe
they're so
in these
ugly.
regular humans pray and believe into their Tyranid hive mind gods. And these brood lords and I think they're called patriarchs all can turn an entire world all based into gene stealers, and these are called gene stealer cults. An entire hive world of the Imperium can be turned into nothing but servants to the Tyranid masters just by infecting them and screwing with their genetic code a little bit. They also have this cool like Mad Max look, which is really neat. They are definitely one of the bigger threats to the Imperium besides Chaos. I keep saying biggest threat to the Imperium. They're up there though, because you, dingus.
What is not a threat to the Imperium though? Like, we got everything. Like, what is the point? What is the point anymore?
Stepped on a bug in middle school. Asshole. There is a cancer eating at the Imperium. With each decade, it advances deeper, leaving drained, dead worlds in its wake. This horror, this abomination, has thought and purpose that functions on an unimaginable galactic scale. And all we can do is to try to stop the swarms of bioengineer monsters it unleashes upon us by instinct. We have given the horror a name to salvage our fears. We call it the Tyranid race. But if it is aware of us, it must know us as nothing but prey.
Damn.
They're cool.
Damn.
But are they as cool as the Orks?
Every scream's
The
Orks. That means I'm super fast.
Orks, 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 orks. I fucking love orks. So, yes, the green monsters, the green tide, the green skins. These orks, they are in fact a race in 40K. The orks are as exactly what you expect them. They have archaic weapons, they're big boys, they have axes, and they have got big old teeth, and they want to kill everything, and there are so many of them.
I love
the
how
only reason
they look exactly how you expect them to look.
Can't stop murdering each other. Orks are so cool. Orks don't have philosophy. Orcs don't have existential crisis. What matters is who's the biggest orc. You listen to that guy because he the biggest orc. He big orc, big orc.
I saw, sorry, I keep pausing, but I saw, this is related to orcs. I saw that there was these two orcs that had saw that, a space marine, I guess like machine that they ended up thinking that was the emperor himself. So they were inspired by it because they wanted to be stronger than it. So they created a whole like Titan type machine for themselves to use in war. And that's like the whole reason why like they are so innovative, because they see things that are strong and they want to make something that's even stronger. The Gargants, yeah.
Orc knows best. You win through the power of imagination. Of all the races I have battled throughout the galaxy, the orc is the hardest to comprehend. They wage war with machines that should not work, care little for strategic gains, and are just as likely to slaughter each other as the enemy. How does one battle an enemy that defies all logic? As an orc,
they just
you're
fight,
enjoying
man.
life. You're enjoying the life you're given. Your whole life and job and purpose is to get up and beat each other to death because you can. The biggest orc is the man who understands everything.
Though.
He is the boss. And orcs
just enjoy
have this
war
really weird, like, big,
in a
dumb,
universe just full
stereotype
of war.
British accent, which is just hilarious to me. Those are orcs. You fight. You like to fight. Your whole purpose is to fight. You wage war because you want to wage war. You got your boss over there, and you better listen to the boss, because if you don't listen to the boss will squish you and make you an example for the other orcs. And then you can't fight because orc dead. And orc dead can't fight because orc dead. Orcs. They scrap together machines out of parts that don't make any sense, and because they believe, they have the mental imagination that that machine will run, it'll run. If that machine's out of gas, you're driving that machine with your fellow orcs, and the biggest orc is behind the wheel, and you run out of gas, some orc behind you is like, oh, Zog, we're out of gas. And the big orc is like, no, we're not. I filled the fucking gas tank up earlier. And all the other orcs are like, oh yeah, you did do that. And then you turn the fucking mech back on and it works again. Does it have gas? Probably not, but it works. The power of imagination. They paint things
like
red because it
SpongeBob
makes
and
them think they goes
Patrick.
faster. They paint things purple because it's the sneakiest color. You wanna know why? You ever seen a purple orc? Didn't fucking think so. Orcs are also like ancient as hell. They're back in the Eldari time frame. But back then they were called Orks, and they were much larger and scarier and far more intelligent. Now they're just orcs, and they're big, dumb, and they smack things.
Are there any red orcs?
Pretty spooky. They're not very well armored, but they hit really hard, and it's called the Green Tide because there are so many orcs. There are about as many orcs as there are Tyranids, maybe more. Who knows? But they keep on, murdering each other,
ones
so
go
it's not too bad of an
faster.
issue. Orcs are entirely comic relief. Their stuff is slapped together. That makes no sense. Their vehicles don't work the way they're supposed to, but they work because they think it works, because they imagine that
Wait, does
works.
that mean they're kind of like what is the faction in Space Marines that that worships like the Mechanicus god? Oh, it's Mechanicus. They're like Mechanicus because like they think it works, so it works.
Orcs care only about who is the biggest orc, and they will follow the biggest orc. And then if they want to be the biggest orc, they'll challenge the biggest orc. And then when they go and they issue a wah is just war in orc, they murder everybody and everything in this giant tide of green orcs who are just excited to be hitting something. They don't care that they're hitting Eldar or the Imperium or Tau or anyone in between. They're just so they get to beat shit up. That's orcs. And on the tabletop, they are a total coin flip, and they're really fun. I have never met
are they kind of like in D&D, you know the wild magic subclass for the wizard or sorcerer? I forget which one. Are they kind of like that in the tabletop for orcs, where it's like everything's kind of RNG for them? Pretty much, kind of, sort of. That's so cool. I love the RNG aspect of like certain factions or certain like subclasses.
Salty orc player. I have never met someone who plays orcs and is ever just a bad guy or that guy. Orc players have this kind of fun to them because when you play them, you are completely submitting yourself to RNG. So here's the thing.
That's so cool.
Guardsmen,
I like that.
Imperial Guardsmen, when they shoot, they roll a dice, and on a 4 up, they'll hit their target. They have a 50% chance. Space Marines, pretty good. They hit on a 3 or higher because they're well trained. Adeptus Custodians, they hit on 2 because they're super well trained.
Damn.
Orks, they hit on a 5 or higher. But if they roll a 6, they get to make another shot with anything. From the dinkiest pistol to the biggest rocket launcher.
Holy
it doesn't matter.
shit.
Half of their stuff will blow up on a whim.
Wow.
One of their medics, if you roll a 1 to heal someone, you fuck up your surgery and you just kill an orc.
What?
They're so wacky and silly. But the thing is if you roll well,
crazy.
you roll high, and you keep rolling high, you are going to crush people.
Oh, I
and
love that.
You lose.
That'd be so
That's what
fun
you get
to
when you
play as an
orcs.
orc.
That's what happens when you play orc. It's a coin flip, which is why you can't be a salty bitch when you play orcs because
I would totally play with
things
the
won't
orcs.
go your way. It's just the roll of the dice. You're playing a dice game. But if you're gonna have fun and you want to be stupid and you want to be silly, you're gonna play some damn orcs. But on the opposite side of the fun part of this, let's talk about the Necrons.
Oh God.
The Necrons are spooky, scary skeletons and very grimdark again. They have a much more fleshed out lore than before. Back in the day, they were just undead Egyptian space terminators, and they still look that way, but now they actually have a story. So way back in the day, you had the Necron tier. Kind of see a theme here: Eldari, Eldar, Krork.
Look, they have the moon-shaped ships like the Witch Queen.
Necron tier. So the Necron tier were this race of generally kind of shitty people. Not because they were personally shitty, because their lives were awful. They were ill-fated to a horrible existence of like radiation and a terrible planet they lived on, and everything just really sucked. Being a Necron tier was just really depressing. They really were looking for immortality.
Wow, they look hella high-tech, though.
They were extremely reliant on the hope that they would eventually find the key to living forever and just stave off this horrible nature that they were thrust upon them, and therefore they could become the most dominant race in the galaxy.
Damn.
And they found this group. They're called the Old Ones. Imagine them kind of like the Forerunners in Halo or the Xel'Naga in StarCraft, right? These Old Ones were these strong, pretty much omnipotent beings, and they, of course, knew the key to immortality. So the Necrons
the Old
went
Ones
to them
are
and
gods?
said, please, show us your ways. And the Old Ones said, piss off. Not really, they were a lot more humble about it, but they did not want to share their secret of immortality with the Necrons. The Necrons, of course, took this very well
and then killed
waged
them.
war with them, kind of under this united banner. The Necron different dynasties didn't really like each other, but under this one man, the Silent King, he thought the best way to unite his race was
the freaking, oh God, this is so good. This is so good.
To do this giant war with the Old Ones out of spite for them keeping the secret of immortality to them. This was known as the War in Heaven, and this is actually like a multi-stage war. Because during this war in heaven, they discovered the star gods, a whole new race of people known as the Catan, or the Catan. These star gods were also very much like Old Ones, almost omnipotent beings, and they too had the key to immortality. And so the Necrons went to them and said, hey, can you help us fight off the Old Ones? Can you help us kill these Old Ones, you, the Catan? And the Catan said yes. And in fact, we can help provide you with the immortality you so desperately seek. So the Silent King of the Necrons decided to make a pact with the Catan to allow them to accept this generous gift of immortality upon them.
Now I feel like there's something wrong. Maybe they can't just give the gift of immortality. There has to be something that they want.
This, of course, had been a horrendous trap, and the Necrons were dragged in chains to this biotransference where their flesh was stripped from them, replaced with nothing but a metal hollow shell, as their souls were ripped from their body and fed to the Catan. And the Catan fattened up. They got chonk on the souls of the Necrons. As this was their plan all along, they consumed the flesh and souls of the Necron tier.
Please tell me the Necrons killed the Catan too.
Robotic slaves just to serve their will. And then, with their new-founded Necron army, they pointed their guns at the old ones, and the Catan continued their domination of the stars and their genocide, complete and full genocide of these old ones. The old ones did their best to stave it off. They even created other races, the Eldari and the Orks, to try to fight off the horrifying Necron army and the Catan above them. But there was absolutely no possible chance for them. And the old ones were absolutely extinguished across the galaxy. Their entire race completely removed. Full on 100% genocide. However, during
I feel like Necrons have like crazy ass lore that like, why is it that I don't hear about them often? Why does it always talk about Space Marines, bitch? I want to hear more about the Necrons. What the hell? War in Heaven? That shit goes hard. Hello? Fighting actual gods? Oh my god.
All this, the Catan, so just infatuated with their victory, started fighting each other for fun, for sport, and for small differences, doesn't matter. The Catan, with these overpowered people, they're going to eventually hit each other at some point. And as they began just menially fighting each other, the Eldari and the Orks actually started pushing on
most
the
of them are
Catan's borders
gone.
a little bit, giving them a little bit of a
Fudge.
run for their money. And as this continued, this is when the Silent King, who retained his consciousness, decided to leap into action and start a full-scale revolt against their Catan masters. And this revolt was bloody, as the entire Necron army was surged off to destroy these star gods. They were able to, just after suffering horrendous losses, were able to turn the tide of the war. And they took these Catan and they blasted them. Because as these star gods are unkillable, they were able to break them into thousands of shards and entrap them in giant stasis vaults to now actually be slaves to the Necrons. And with the Necrons having the entirety of their old gods enslaved to them, they realized that soon their race was about to be attacked by the overcoming new races, the Eldari and the Orks. And so what they did is they retreated into giant stasis tombs in order to preserve their energy and their strength for when one day they would be reawakened and they would be able to rule the galaxy.
Okay, so that's why. That's why we don't hear about them, because they went to sleep because they were about to get attacked by the other races. They're like, no, we need to power up first. Hold on.
And then some dingus Adeptus Mechanicus guy diddled with a green console, and now the Necrons are back, and they see all these primitive races on their lawns, and they think, get the fuck off of it. The Necrons are back, super advanced, and they are here to reclaim the galaxy that they so rightfully believe is theirs. Now, at tabletop, they're a lot like that.
Well,
tons of undead Egyptian skeleton
it's always
robots.
the fucking damn Mechanicus, always messing with the things that you don't want to mess with. Always. And the shitty thing is they always keep to themselves and never tell anyone anything, and they don't even trust each other. They're all conniving little fucks.
That when they die, they just get right back up because they keep on reanimating. Hard to kill, tons of crazy stuff. You can use the Catan themselves as units to fight with. It's pretty cool. The Necrons are one of the three major events in 40k. The Horus Heresy, the Fall of the Eldar, and the Awakening of the Necrons are all pretty substantial events. And the Necrons themselves are pretty dang cool as well. Here's a good quote.
Are Necrons kind of good though? Like, are they evil? Do they do evil things? I don't know. They're okay. They have honor. They're kind of neutral. They're super evil, very evil. But they're so cool, though. They're so cool. And all they wanted was immortality. I guess that's kind of a questionable goal. They kill everything.
Well, wonderful Dawn of War game. Lucky creatures, as long last you have found the tranquility of death I was like you once, clinging to life and blind to the truth. When I uncovered the truth, I too shuddered and paled with fear. Deep in these catacombs, I was remade. Here, my brethren slumbered for eons while the living grew like weed. My Lord knew this day would come. He had plans for us all. We would purge this world once more. So come, poor victims of life. We will grant you tranquility in these crypts. Kronos will be a tomb world.
They just want to kill everyone. Got it. Okay. Well, who doesn't want to kill everyone? I mean, I guess the Eldari, they just want to fucking enslave you, but everyone else just wants to kill.
Once more. Necrons are also pretty smug. Trey's in the Infinite especially. A little dickhead. But speaking of dickheads, last race.
Dickheads. The Tau. Is that the Tau? Oh, let's go.
The exact formation of the Tau Empire is not entirely understood.
Bricky?
However, a long time ago, many thousands of years ago, in the 40K world that is, some Imperial navigation vessels were going around through different areas, and they saw a primitive race, blue people, smacking each other with sticks and stones. They thought,
they look cool.
Yeah. Dumb Xenos race, who gives a shit, and they bailed. Then this giant warp storm occurred right in that major area, unable to be breached. Then, once that warp storm 6,000 years later subsided, hello, those little sticks. Well, they decided to actually have no war of any kind and all just unite together under one flag of the Tau Empire.
Damn.
And now they have gigantic starships and Gundam robots and lasers and railguns and mechs, and they are here to ruin your day for the greater good.
For the
that
greater
is generally
good.
The Tau Empire.
For the
they
greater
have
good.
this kind of feeling of this homogenous group. All species can go underneath the banner of the greater good. The greater.
Really? So the Tau, well, if you're not a Tau yourself, like if you're, you know, another race and you're like seeking refuge, or you want to like do greater good, anyone can be part of them. They're like the Covenant from Halo. Oh my God, that is so freaking cool. That is so freaking cool. Join or die. Oh. Yeah, go ahead, but oh wait, am I missing critical information? Am I Ea no Sabe?
Good is their idea of the fundamental increase and help of all. In fact, they are most likely the most like the Covenant in Halo, where they have the overarching prophets, being the ethereals, who are actually kind of dicks and like to pull at strings a little bit, but then you have all these different races directly underneath them, and they all work together in this big group as this large, foreboding race that tries to spread their weirdly pseudo-religious influence across the galaxy. The alien is not intrinsically evil. Do not hate him. Pity him, his ignorance. Seek to understand his differences and equate him with his inadequacies. Only then will he accept his place in the greater good. That is generally the Tau. And if you're kind of wondering like what their mainly big shtick is, well, they're all about big robots and mechs. They have laser rifles and rail guns. They got giant mechs with tons of missile pods and heavy rail rifles and rail guns and burst cannons and ion accelerators and void shields and all this stuff. And that is generally what the Tau's all about. But you're probably thinking, Bricky,
that's what Darling in the Franxx was based off of. It was based off the Tau. It was a true story that happened in the Tau faction.
Doesn't sound that evil. This doesn't sound very grim, dark Warhammer. And you'd be right. The Tau Empire really don't have that much of a horrifying, grim, dark style like everybody else. They're much more younger, new age thing. In fact, they're probably a lot less evil and a lot even better than they are now back in the day, because they liked having like that good guy faction. But a lot of us who really like the dark, depressing style of Warhammer didn't really like it that much. So, see, the Tau get a lot of hate, and a lot of that hate isn't necessarily unjustified. It's mainly from a tabletop perspective, but as you can see from all the visuals I've shown you recently, they don't really fit in the 40K universe very well. They lack that super dark, dramatic, kind of high gothic level the Imperium has. They don't have the weird kind of like grungy stuff that Chaos or say the Orks do. And the Necrons and the Eldar.
I feel like the contrast is like good though. I feel like the contrast of the Tau being like the way they are is like a good like, I don't know, like a refreshing to see.
Have their own specific style as well. The Tau really do look like something out of Gundam, and while it isn't necessarily a bad thing, it does definitely not fit too well. There's that. There's also the tabletop problem. In tabletop, Tau are horrible at melee combat, but exceptionally good at range combat. So they blast everyone from really, really far away, and they have a million rules to make it so that it's nearly impossible for you to get into melee combat. So it basically just forces you to bottleneck the game into one specific gameplay style, which is gun to gun. And if you're doing gun to gun, they're going to win every time, because they're the Tau, and the Tau are really damn good at shooting. So it's one of those things that make the Tau generally rather hated, and a lot of different reasons for that, both for style and such. But this is actually one of the things I wanted to end this video with, is that the Tau, while they have their issues, you should not be discouraged from playing them. I'll make plenty of Tau weeaboo jokes.
I don't want to play the OP class, though.
Fun. Anyone who legitimately doesn't want you to play a faction is an idiot, and you shouldn't be giving them the time of day. You pick what you think is cool and what you like. In Warhammer, especially now, factions get better and they get worse. They grow and then they fall. You should only be playing what you think is cool.
Not anymore.
You like the look, you like the models. If you're talking tabletop, that is what you should be going for every time, is what you think is badass, because things change all the time.
Orks.
But the universe of Warhammer has so much going for it. Every faction has something interesting, every character has a story, and there's a million stories to be told. The universe is vast and exciting, and while it is dark, depressing, and horrible, that is the damn charm. And out of everything I've told you in these two videos, is anything you could take away is the reason why so many of us are so into this series and why we like it so much. Because with so much variety, such an expansive universe, and so much that can be done, you can find yourself having a pretty great time. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it has been informative to you. If you'd like to see more of me, Bricky, you have twitch.tv/Bricky for my streams. You have my merchandise site, in which I was wearing all of my merch, but underneath this, because I had to wear this so it wasn't black.
I feel like out of any of the factions that we've learned about so far, I actually learning that the Orc faction is based on RNG for the tabletop, I would probably enjoy playing the Orcs a lot. I love RNG mechanics. It's so fun not knowing like if you're gonna do good or if you're gonna do bad. Like I love that. I would play the Orcs. Orc versus Orc would be fun. Yeah, because like you don't know what's gonna happen. Like you're gonna end up trying to heal one of your Orcs, and then the surgeon rolls a 1, and then your Orc dies, and then you're just like, fuck. Well, now what? And then the other team is like trying to attack you, but then they roll a really bad roll, and then they like end up killing themselves. Just like never-ending chaos. Also, if you like more of fantasy setting, Warhammer fantasy lore is pretty good too. Oh god, no, we cannot get into Warhammer fantasy. Let's focus on Warhammer 40k for now, because this is already too much. Also, I heard that the fantasy isn't as good as 40k from what I heard, but I do like fantasy. I have seen a couple of fantasy factions, and they look really awesome. It's from like Age of Sigmar. I think that's considered Warhammer Fantasy. Warhammer Fantasy is not as popular. I've seen a lot of like Age of Sigmar figurines, and I've always wanted to like do a painting with them. Age of Sigmar is a bit weird. Didn't know Bricky made Warhammer content, honestly. Isn't Bricky's whole shtick about Warhammer, though? Like, I thought that was what his whole thing is. Warhammer fantasy lore is still better than any other fantasy lore. You think so? 40k alone has 400 books and about 30 or 40 years of lore. I'm not even like anywhere. Like, Warhammer is older than me by like a lot, guys. I have to catch up on 40 years of lore? Bruh. I wonder how long Warhammer is gonna last until it like until something else becomes more popular. Wait, I thought you were old. Really now, gamer? We're gonna go down this road again. Really now? They used to make metal models that you can paint and play with. I think they still do make those. Games Workshops knew their golden goose, so they stuck with it. 13 years older than me. Oh my. Yeah, the fucking Warhammer, like, I did not know how long it's been around for. And now that I'm getting into like the deep I mean, we're still like surface level, but now that we're like diving deeper, it's like become so apparent to me that like we have missed so much information. We probably won't ever get to a point where like we're super, or I won't get to a point where I'm like super confident in like knowing my Warhammer lore, but I do retain the information pretty well, because if I am interested in something, then I will retain that information pretty easily. If I'm not really interested in something, then it just goes out of my other ear after listening to it.